In this video, we're going to talk about what happened to MMTLP, why I think it happened, and what we can do about it. We'll also cover more generally speaking about how to approach similar situations in the future. Now, before I begin, I just want to say two words for people who have, dedicated a huge portion of capital in this whole endeavor. So, of course, we're going to talk more about like exposure and whatever in this video, but just remember, as far as you're concerned, as far as everyone is concerned, money is just money. Okay? It's not the end all be all in your world, in our world, in everybody's, in anyone's mind. Okay? This doesn't mean that you're never going to be able to make it. At some point, you've decided to take a portion of your savings and you've decided to, to make more money with what you have. This is certainly commendable. It's not a mistake to think like this. There might be other things to be changed. Of course, it's a situation that is not fun. That's for sure. But it also doesn't mean that the idea of investing into a position, the idea of putting your money in the financial sector is necessarily a bad one, okay? It also doesn't mean that you're never going to be able to make back this amount of money. Regardless of what is your current situation, what is your age and whatnot. Like, we will all go through challenging situations in our life. It doesn't mean that you will not be able to make out of it, okay? What's important is to not make the same kind of mistake over and over and over again. This is what matters the most. The fact that you have lost, north of 5 figures, it happens. It happens to everyone. It's bound to happen to people at some point in their life if they invest, if they trade. So with that being said, if you need to get some help, I am sure that there are, local resources that you can use. There are also online forums that you can attend to make sure that, psychologically speaking, you stand strong. So the situation has met with a drastic turn by the end of last week, with the stock removed from the OTC market, essentially no longer allowing people to trade it. This results in massive losses, of course, for people who have decided to buy in a huge amount of MMTLP shares, especially during the last few days. I really have seen a lot of people who have bought in, like, when the stock price went down from $8 to like $3 or $4, that's when a lot of people posted like screen caps of them buying thousands of shares. Well, for a reason, I want to add, because they were not expecting what's going to happen afterwards, obviously. So FINRA's explanation regarding the whole situation, and by the way, FINRA is the one that authorized the removal. Yes, that's them. It has been a little bit messy and convoluted, but essentially what they're saying is the stock will be deleted as a result of the merger, and or because, it's kind of not clear what's going to happen or what should happen. So given all this, we're going to remove it, despite the fact that we previously said that it's going to be removed by like December 12th or December 13th, and the last day of trading being December 12th. At the moment, there's a high amount of anger and frustration, to put it lightly, a high amount of anger and frustration in the investors' community. Because it's quite obvious that FINRA might have done this to protect some from the others, right? Of course, such a conclusion, legally speaking, is speculative and might differ from the reality itself. If 20 years from now we have like disclassified documents showcasing what exactly happened. But it is at least a plausible scenario for the time being. There have been a lot of discussions online regarding this matter, and generally speaking, the consensus is that the short sellers don't have enough money to cover, or don't want to give in so much money to cover their short positions. And that the massive short squeeze, mathematically speaking, statistically speaking, has been written on the wall for months at this point, and decided to get the stock delisted so that they don't have to cover. Now, despite the fact that, the full details are yet to be disclosed, the current sentiment of being lied to is more than justified in my opinion. FINRA did not get involved when the short positions have built up. And yet, they suddenly changed their previous statements, they changed their assessment on the stock just a few days before the shared redemptions are due. This is very strange behavior. And they have to provide answers, convincing answers for the missing part. So many of us are wondering what's going on and what's going to happen to our investment, our position, our MMTLP shares, and more importantly, our money. Simply put, if nothing is done, it's gone. I mean, right now it might be sitting in the limbo because technically, your shares might be still somewhere. You just can't trade it, you can't move it, you can't cash it out. They have been delisted and removed. So the best option, the best course of action to take right now is to start petitioning or to group together for class action lawsuits, either against FINRA, other stakeholders, people who have a say in the whole, the whole short squeeze situation, or even MMAT. I mean, at this point, we don't know who authorized what to trigger this kind of situation, but noises need to be made in order to get out of this kind of very bad situation. So these plans are already burgeoning on social media and online forums, so it's very important to follow up on these situations to make sure that your rights are protected. Some of the Twitter accounts to follow would include John Berta and this fellow called Payne. So check out what they have to say, and eventually I think that this would end up in court. To those who believe that all is already lost, that there's not going to be any consequences, and that nothing can be done, technically speaking, I wouldn't necessarily argue that all your money, down to every penny, will be reimbursed back. Okay, I cannot say that with good faith. To every single shareholder of MMTLP who have decided to long the stock, but I am certain that having legal actions and making noises would have an effect on how things are and how they're going to evolve in the years to come. So one thing that I kind of got reminded of would be the entire Terra Luna debacle. Do has now been issued a red notice by the Interpol. The assets have been seized, and the investigations are still underway. So this is why I would never say that lawsuits and petitions have no effect. They obviously do, just not necessarily equal to the answer of we're all going to get our money back down to every penny. The argument of the lawsuits can be found in the clauses and the fine prints of MMTLP themselves. The interest of the investors should be safe kept above other considerations, and in this case they have been clearly affected and stomped on even, and therefore extraordinary measures should be taken to address them. Furthermore, the actions of FINRA in the last few trading days have been out of the ordinary course of actions, and that things have been clearly favoring the short sellers than the retail traders. So in the very least, explanations need to be given regarding why the shares have been deleted and why they happen in such a short delay. In fact, there's no delay, right? There's no delay. They told us like one day ahead, saying like basically changing the wording of something that nobody really understood what they truly meant. Most people, in fact, still believe that the last day of trade is December 12th. Now, just a little segue here. I also want to predict how the exchanges or the conversation is going to evolve into if the whole thing ends up in a hearing, okay? Without the presence of a court, without the presence of prosecutors. If this thing just ends up in a public hearing, given previous experiences, this might involve, them coming in with a very frequent usage of jargons, the insinuation that whatever they say was too complicated for the peons, us, to understand, and that they have no interest in protecting particular shareholders from the other. The market's integrity, that, that they are the vanguard of the market's integrity, and that what they're protecting is far too important compared to the bottom line of some. Of course, the lack of any concrete proof of foul play here would also be in their favor, like big time. Okay, I'm not saying that this is not an issue, since no one saw or heard anything that would specifically pinpoint the short sellers and FINRA colluding together. Those are going to be the main challenges for MMTLP shareholders to make their voices to be heard and to be taken seriously. The message should be addressed to the public in simple and concise terms, and point out the weirdness of timing and how sudden things have been, and how obvious to whom this is going to profit. We should remember that FINRA is a self-regulated entity, meaning it is in the financial industry, like it is the financial industry itself regulating and watchdogging itself. With that being said, responsibility would ultimately fall on the shoulders of the SEC. I believe that the case should be made towards them, and to force the authorities to take it seriously. Now, I also want to say something regarding my reasoning and my opinions on short plays before and after what happened with MMTLP. I am amazed by how many people are simply willing to piling money. And by the way, when I say amazed, I truly mean amazed. I don't mean this in any sort of derogatory manner. To piling their money to get a stock up and to force the shorts out, and then to make a huge profit in the process. This played out well with AMC and GameStop. And ever since then, there have been sporadic successes with selected stocks like Ethereum, CEI, BBIG, so on and so forth, because the upward momentum didn't manage to last for any of these. I felt that positions should never be held in a percentage that might be too high, and for me, this is why I don't go above 1% when I buy in those kind of stocks, because we don't know where the spikes are going to go, and we don't know whether they're going to last. Another factor that might explain, the exposure that I recommend is the counterparty we would be up against have far more resources and capital, and as we know now, contact to deal with those positions. There have been past examples where the management worked with those short sellers against those who are long their own stock. This happened with a company called SPRT, which ended up changing its name to GREE when they have merged with them. And in the end, nothing was left for people who have decided to get in for the expected short squeeze. Again, statistically, is it going to work? Yes. Theoretically, philosophically speaking, are they allowed to collude together and to get away with it? No, of course not. Did they get away with it? Yes. So, in one of my previous videos, I have mentioned or speculated that something weird or surprising might happen in the end that'll somehow predict the prevent the investors from making the gains with the short squeeze, or to prevent the short squeeze altogether. I didn't say what it might be because on one hand, I don't know what it's going to be. I didn't know what it's going to be. And I also didn't know what are the odds that it's going to happen, right? In my book, very low, because who would do something that blatant? That's what I thought at the time. I didn't have a crystal ball telling me that the short position would have some weird events in this way, resulting in everyone losing their money. It was, for the most part, just a hunch. Looking ahead, I think that we have to use the judicial and media power to our side and to make the voice to be heard, and to make sure that things like those don't happen again, and to use these opportunities to remind ourselves that regardless of how interesting a trade idea might be, we always have to control the exposure and to keep your urge to buy more than what we should, to keep our peace of mind. So I hope this video helped you to navigate the murky waters of MMTLP and have identified some possible improvements to be made in the trading strategies to be applied later on. Please let me know down in the comments if you bought any MMTLP shares, how much you're in for, and whether you're going to go to a petition or legal case. This will not be the end of our coverage of MMTLP. I will keep looking for the latest developments regarding MMTLP and any regulatory responses, as well as information about legal actions that might be in the making.